alfresco beam up that rests in the slot in the wall frame, but it also sits in this particular bracket that we have up here. This is a bracket that holds two different beams, different axes. So I'll be cutting them at a 45-degree angle and they meet on the outside. So I'll be showing you how to fit it into that bracket correctly. I've already cut a 45-degree angle here with my saw, but it unfortunately doesn't have enough coverage to go all the way through. It's about 2 millimeters short. So I'll be following up with my hand saw to do the final cut. So these are the beams here, glue lamb beams. They have a particular curve so that they, when they're up on the alfresco, they sag properly and it's flat along the bottom. To measure these against the distance that I have on our alfresco, I've decided to not cut this where my measurements are. So I know that from here on back it's going to be scrap wood. So I've made my initial cut up here, which gives me the ability to, once I've cut this off, and the longer part is at the bottom here, is to flip the beam over, measure it from the bottom down to the other end to get the correct measurement that I need, rather than trying to do some guesswork about where my blade is going to cut on the top here. This gives me a slightly more accurate cut, it's a bit more mucking around, and I'm sure some professionals know a better way of doing it. So let me cut this off and I'll show you what it looks like. So, as you can see, my circular saw nearly made it all the way through. It was just this last little bit here that I had to go through with the hand saw. So, I've cut the beam to the correct length, flipped it over, measured from the long side of the 45-degree cut down the far end, which gave me my straight line up here. Cut through it with my circular saw, and this is the leftover piece. So hopefully this should fit up onto the brackets as designed. The measurements are bang on, so we should be good. We need to do some notching down the far end to accommodate for the thickness of the steel brackets up on the frame, but I'll show you how to do that. So now that the beam's cut to length, I need to do the notching, and it is one of 3 recommended ways that Paal says to do this kind of thing. So the first option is to not do it and to put the frame up and bolt it into place and you're done. I think that looks a little bit unsightly, because what you'll end up with is, imagine that this is your vertical section up there on the beam support. So it will sit on your beam like that and sit out. The second option is to put a rebate in this piece of wood here that goes all the way through, deep enough that the vertical part of the stirrup up there, this bit, slots down into it. The third part, which is the neatest of all but takes the most time, is because the bracket is 22-ish centimeters, but this board is in fact 29.5 centimeters. It only comes part way up. So the easiest option is to just run the saw through and then chip it out with a chisel. But because we need to leave this little section here at the top, I've only been able to come through 3/4 of the way. So I need to come through with the chisel, clear that out, and then it'll fit that bracket perfectly so that it slots down into it very nicely into there, about 6 millimeters down. So it's a nice flush fit the whole way along. So let's do that. as I was saying, we need to clear out some of the waste material on here. I have already made the cuts with my cross-cut saw, all there, all the way through, and they're at the correct depth. So I need to come through with the chisel now and clean up that whole section there. Let's do that here. Have my chisels and my handy mallet. Let's have a go at this. Tidy that up a little bit. Bit of a zoom in angle. We've got one last long bit left and a couple of smaller ones. I'll just show you how easy it is to actually do. You'll notice that I've left the last little bit here. This is because the circular saw with its curved blade hasn't been able to get down into the corner up there as it did down here, which makes this bit just a little bit harder to do. Not that much harder though. There we go. I'll tidy that up just a little bit more to get rid of a couple of these little ridge lines here. But that's the process. Once that goes up, our pretend support will slot very nicely into there, and it'll look very nice with a nice flush fit. So nearly done putting all the changes to these beams. There's 4. I've done all of the rebates, the cuts. I've left these 2 over length for the moment, and I'll trim them as I go up. They're the ones that go along the long edge of our alfresco. One of the things that was mentioned in the construction manual around these wooden beams is that the brackets that they sit in are welded together. So where they form the cross, or the corner, sorry, there is a bead of weld along the inside, which means that if you put one of these beams in there, then the edge along here is going to interfere with the bead of weld that's in there, and it won't sit properly. So what they are suggested to do in the construction manual is where that bead of weld is, which on this piece of wood is from this point here to this point here, is to trim that back a little bit. They don't say how to do that. It is fairly obvious. I use a chisel to do it. There's a number of ways that you can do it. And all we need to do is just give ourselves some relief cuts on the end and then trim it away. So I'll zoom in and you can see what I'm doing. And that should be enough.